Welcome back to the Serving My Master podcast, and thank you for joining me today. In our previous episode, we started discussing a little bit the details of an Eved Ivri and what it shows us and how it adds to the perspective and to the vision that we've been building. But the next part in this mitzvah is more detail about the Omo Ivriya. If a Jewish woman ends up becoming a servant to a Jewish master. And what we see here is something incredible. As we had previously discussed, the first mitzvah given to us in the Torah, the commandment of having children, showing us and prioritizing that the most important thing in this world is the continuity of the world and making sure that we can have another generation of servants, showing us indeed how the highest level and position a person can reach in this world is to recreate and to create another generation of servants. Something that, of course, is held in an extremely esteemed position in the Torah, showing us how the Jewish woman is on an incredibly high level, showing us in essence that despite the fact that a Jewish man has to fulfill many, many commandments in order to purify himself and to perfect his level of service, Jewish women have much less commandments. Jewish women are built and created in a much closer image of God Himself. In order for them to be at this incredible high level of recreating a new generation of servants. In the Birchas Hashacha, a Jewish woman will say, She'asani kirtzoinoi. Hashem, the master of the world, made me more as His ultimate wish is. Jewish women are created closer to the image of God than anyone else in this world. And this is something that we see by the Omo Ivriya. When a Jewish woman ends up becoming a servant to a Jewish master, the Torah's emphasis is not try to release her, try to get to a point where you can give her back her independence or so-called independence from a human master. But indeed, the higher obligation would be to turn her into a wife, to turn her into a position where not only will she not have to be a human servant, but she will be able to fulfill her ultimate mission in this world. The Torah puts marrying a Jewish servant higher than releasing her or trying to finance her release. And even if one cannot fulfill that obligation, one is supposed to try at least to have his son fulfill that obligation. Showing us again how that is the highest level a person can reach, to try and create a new generation of servants, a new generation of Klal Yisrael. And that would be a higher opportunity of service than something that we might think as releasing this Jewish woman to her independence. Of course, she reached the position that she's in to become a Jewish servant, whether out of poverty or out of a situation where she stole and she couldn't return the money and therefore she was sold into that position. But what the Torah shows us is that when we find ourselves or another person in a situation where they can't fulfill their ultimate service, our first and most important obligation in this world is to try to help them fulfill their service. We're not here to try and figure out what human logic is or what human morals are. We are here to make sure that we and everyone in the world fulfills their service to the Master of the world. And if we find a Amma Ivriya in the Torah, if we find a Jewish woman that is in a position that she could not fulfill her purpose in this world, what we are obligated to do is to make sure that she can get to a position where she could do just that. Chazal tell us that even if this Jewish woman might be the best servant this person ever had, she is baking the most amazing things, she is cleaning in the most amazing way, or so forth, and you're taking care of her amazingly, none of that matters. What matters most is to try to get her back to a position where she could be what she's supposed to be, which is a Jewish mother. But more than that, the Torah tells us that when indeed, if he is able to fulfill this obligation, to turn this Amma Ivriya into what the Torah would call the Giveres, a new queen, to turn her into his wife, or have his son turn her into his wife. Not only can that not be done in a minute or small way, but he has all the obligations that he would have to any other woman that he would turn into his wife. He has to take care of her with the same respect and commandments that the Torah tells us a person is bound to give to his own wife. Because indeed, when we find the opportunity to help another Yid reach a higher level of service, we are obligated to do so in the best possible way. And we cannot let anything fall aside. Because in this world, the only thing that could always show us the way of what we're supposed to do is the question, what would a servant do? And if a servant finds themselves in a position where they see that another servant cannot fulfill their mission, their purpose, of course, the ultimate servant knows immediately that right now my mission, my objective is to help out this other servant, to help this servant get back on track. And of course, even though there are no Eved Ivri or Amma Ivriyos today, there are so many other opportunities where we can see that the people around us, whether they lost their objective or whether they don't know of the idea of service, or whether they're simply incapable of fulfilling their mission at their moment, it is our obligation as servants to the Master of the world to try and make sure that every Yid in this world returns to the service of the Master of the world and help them not only to reach maybe a little bit of service, but help everyone to reach the highest level of service, to reach perfection itself in ultimate service. And as we mentioned in the previous episode, because indeed everyone could reach the level of service that Moshe Rabbeinu reached, that the Torah itself says he was a loyal servant, a faithful servant, the highest level possible. And each and every one of us could reach that level. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward in continuing this discussion with you in the coming episodes. Thank you and have a wonderful day.